So, my football coach once said that the game of football is the same as the game of life. And when I was thinking of that, I was thinking of that football is actually the same as religion, or the conduction of religion. We have all these various players on the team. Same as on a football team, every person on that team has a duty or a job to perform. And if they don't perform that job at each play of the game, well, the job doesn't get done. And quarterbacks, they seem to get all the press. But if it was only the quarterback playing, it wouldn't be much of a game. It takes the offensive line to protect him. It takes the people he's handing the ball off to do their job. So everybody has a job to do. It's the same way with if we just have elders and nobody else in this church, the job wouldn't get done. And so there is no one person, there is no one position that's greater than the other. To be an effective worker for Christ, we are all needed, and to do the job to the best of our ability. If you feel inadequate about the job that you've been assigned, just look at the disciples that Jesus had to work with. They started out not being much, but Jesus saw something in them. Well, as we start this new year, I know, and maybe none of you have this feeling, but I know out there on social media there's a lot of people that have an apprehension about the coming year, the coming 4 years, if you want to go with the term of our presidency. Not only do we have new people doing jobs here in the church, we have a new administration in Washington. And with that, we're going to have, apparently, we're going to be losing our governor, and we're going to be gaining a new governor ourselves because of what's transpired in Washington. We've had incidents all across the globe. Just over New Year's, we've had incidents that sparked violence, hatred to one another, and people dying senselessly. And this is according to the Geneva Academy. Now, I'm not sure who they are or what they do, but in 2024, they compiled a list. There were 114 armed conflicts. Now, an armed conflict that they're referring to is one country against another country. That's involved at least deaths on either side. And it could have been multiple countries against others. But anyway, 114 armed conflicts. And the United States was known to have involvement in 86 of these conflicts. So just because the conflict is happening over in Asia somewhere, and you don't really even hear about it on the news, well, the U.S. has got some involvement with it. there's a growing number of people that they are really dead set that the world is going to end here in the next year, or at least the next few years down the road. Everything, all the prophecies are falling into place, they think. Well, if that is the case, we should not be going around in this glum and worried attitude. We should be shouting from the roofs, saying, "Hallelujah!" We should be dancing in the street. We should be telling people, now is the time to turn to God. But instead, we're trying to hide ourselves. And we're like ostriches. We poke our heads in the sand. So yes, this is good news if that's what's going to happen. It's good news that this world of pain and suffering is going to come to an end, and the dying will be over. Does God need the Adventist Church to finish the work? Well, I have to say, if you believe that, I think you're sorely wrong. God does not need us to finish his work. God's going to finish it one way or the other. And God will use whoever takes up the calling. So, this last week, I was taking the little Signs magazines around, and I distribute them at the laundromats. We have a box over at Sutley's. Sutley's, I still call it that, but it's Dakota Mart in Fort Pierre. And anyway, I was taking the signs to Buell's Laundry. And I pull up to the door, and here I can see this guy sitting right beyond the window. And I just think to myself, and I kind of say to God, so give me an opportunity to have a conversation with this gentleman. And so I walk in, and I place the magazine in the windowsill, and he's sitting right there by the window, and I place it up there, and I put it on the table, and he says, "What do you got there?" And so I tell him about the little magazine, how it's an inspirational magazine, and anyway, well, who puts it out? And I said, well, the Adventist Church has I don't know what I really said, but deals with it. And so I said I'm an Adventist, and anyway, I thought, oh boy, here God came through. I'm having a conversation with this guy, and anyway, I put the magazine to the back, and I come back, and anyway, he said there was a whole bunch of stuff piled up back where I laid the magazine. Anyway, he said, well, that's my stuff back there. He said I had to spend the night in the laundromat. He said I got evicted out of my apartment. It seems that the people that were running his apartment were stealing the money that he was paying for his rent. And so he was 6 months late on his rent. He had neighbors there that didn't like him for whatever reason. They would drill little holes in his tires, so his tires would just slowly go down. That went on for about 8 months. And I thought, while he was telling me this stuff, I thought, oh no, here is this hard luck story that he's going to be telling me. Anyway, he went on and on about stuff that was happening to him. And he said, it's all good though. He said, God's in control. And he said, I've got a way around all this stuff. He said, luckily, the lady here at the laundromat, she apparently lets other people stay overnight in the laundromat. He said he went to the police thinking that they would maybe house him overnight. And anyway, they said, nope, they can't do nothing. He'd have to go through PARS, which he was going to go through that day, or within an hour or something. A gal was supposed to come and do whatever. His car got towed away. He took it to the garage to get 4 new tires put on it. And anyway, he went there to go pay for his tires, and his car was gone. And they didn't have any idea what happened to his car. And so anyway, yeah, his whole life was just one bad thing after another. Anyway, and the guy lost his wife 3 years ago. And I swear, the guy, remember we talked to the guy in the park? And that was, do you remember what year that was? But anyway, we talked to a guy down in Griffin Park, and he had just lost his wife, and he was out in the park just wanting to talk to people. And anyway, the guy looked, or what I remember, he looked like this gentleman. But anyway, this guy, after all the bad things that he was talking about, he had such a positive outlook. 2 years ago, he'd been diagnosed with this rare disease where his body combats the enzymes that his body is producing. And so he's on a wait list at Rochester to do a clinical study there. And so he was hoping to get his car back in order to get there. And anyway, but he's got money. He had no problems financially. But he's hoping that by going to Rochester and helping or doing these clinical studies, that he can actually save thousands of more people's lives. He said, I probably won't live past a year, but he said, that doesn't matter. If I can be a service in their study, then maybe I can help other people. Anyway, then he told me he'd been a minister of a sorts for 35 years. He started 2 Christian bike groups, and one of the Christian bike groups has over 800 members now. And he said he started out by going to Sturgis and just giving Bible studies there, or just sermons, and just talking with people out there. And eventually it just grew into this big group of people. And anyway, he said it's pretty fun when you go to Sturgis and you're in the Bear Butte Creek there baptizing people. He said the water's only 4 inches deep, but that doesn't matter. He said These people, they are begging to know more about God. And so, yeah, he looked at my magazine and he said, yeah, you're doing a good work, he said. But don't get too cocky, because when you start doing that, he said, I thought I had the world by the, I won't go into that. But he said, God will put a speed bump in your path. And he's done that with me a time or two, he said. He said, I just have to give myself over to the Lord and pray, and God will work things out in time. You just have to be patient sometimes. Excuse me here. I got to kind of compose myself. So I asked the Lord that maybe I could offer this guy something. God has a way of flipping things around. I couldn't offer this guy a thing. But he offered me quite a bit. So we had our scripture reading, and so that might have sounded kind of vague just in itself, the scripture reading. But I want to say that if you read it, it tells you not to worry about the past. The past is done and over with. And it asks you, or there's a question asked, shall you not know the things that I am doing for you? God will make a way in the uncharted territory. He makes a road where there seems to be no presence of God. His life-giving presence will be overflowing. Where there is nothing but desert, he will bring forth rivers. Where it doesn't seem like there's a Christian presence, where people are not accepting who God is, he'll bring forth rivers of them in the time to come. So, don't worry about what has happened, and don't worry about what's to come. As the guy says, God has this. Just be patient. Just be prayerful, and he'll work things out.